Hello guys, this is Priyanka welcoming you all to the Buddy Academy. So this is our second session in grade 12 chemistry. In first session, we saw the first unit, the solid state. Under that, we saw many important topics and also some problems based on the exam point of view. So today in this session, we are going to see the second unit, solutions. What comes in your mind when you hear the word solutions? Yeah, solutions are nothing but liquids. So we call a substance a solution when it has a flowing ability. So we are going to study about the liquids, what happens to those liquids when it is subjected to an external force, or what happens to those liquids when it is added within some other state of matter like solid or gas. So in this session, we are going to see the important topics of this unit. So the important topics of this unit are concentration of solution, vapor pressure, solubility and colligative properties. So in this session, we are going to see about the concentration of solution, vapor pressure and then solubility. So without any delay, we will move on to the session now. So these are the topics that we are going to see in this session. So first we are going to study what is a solution, classification of solution, concentration of solution, expressing concentration of solution, solubility, types of solution based on solubility, Henry's law, vapor pressure of liquid solutions, Raoult's law, ideal and non-ideal solution, and we are going to solve some problems. So first, what is a solution? Solutions are homogeneous mixture of two or more than two components. So what is a mixture? Mixture are the combination of two substances. So these mixtures are classified into two types, homogeneous mixture and heterogeneous mixture. If the composition are uniform, then they are known as homogeneous mixture, and if the composition is not uniform, then it is known as heterogeneous mixture. So solutions are nothing but solute plus solvent will give solution. Okay, so we said that it is a combination of two or more substances. Okay, so those substances are named as solute and solvent. So these substances can be a solid, liquid or gas. Okay. So what is a solute? So solute is the smallest quantity that we are going to dissolve in a solvent. Together that will make a solution. Okay. So solutions are homogeneous mixture of two or more than two components, and those components can be a solid, liquid or gas. Solute plus solvent will give us solution. Okay. So we already saw what is a homogeneous mixture. Let us see the example for homogeneous mixture. Mixing salt or sugar with water. So what will happen when you mix a salt or sugar with water? It will get dissolved. So the color of the water will be transparent, right? So when you add the sugar or salt and dissolve it, what will happen? It will be transparent only, right? So this is the example of homogeneous mixture. Now let me see the classification of solution. Solutions can be classified based on two things. One is number of components and the other one is physical state of solute and solvent. So first, based on the number of components, it can be classified into binary, ternary and quaternary. So if the number of components is 2, then it is known as binary. If the number of components is 3, then it is known as ternary, and if the number of component is 4, it is known as quaternary. So now let me see the classification based on physical state of solute and solvent. So in this, the types of solution are gaseous solution, liquid solutions and solid solutions. So a solution is known as gaseous or liquid or solid based on the type of solvent. If the solvent is a gas, then it is known as gaseous solution. If the solvent is liquid, then it is known as liquid solution. If the solvent is solid, then it is known as solid solution. Then the solute can be anything. It can be a gas or liquid or solid. So there are three types under each category. For gaseous solution, gas with gas, liquid with gas and solid with gas is one type, and in liquid also gas with liquid, liquid with liquid, solid with liquid, and in solid, gas with solid, liquid with solid and solid is solid, solid with solid. Okay, so the solvent, based on the solvent, it can be classified. So and these are the examples based on each category. Try to memorize these examples. It is very important in your exam. So next is the concentration of a solution. So what is the concentration of a solution? It is the amount of solute dissolved in a known amount of solvent or solution. Okay, so let us imagine when you are preparing a tea, you will be adding milk, tea powder, sugar, etc. Will you add the amount of tea powder or sugar as such? If you are making a cup of tea, you will be adding only 1 spoon of sugar and 1 spoon of tea powder, right? So there are certain concentration to make a tea itself. So like that, in chemical terms, there is certain concentration to prepare the solution. So the proportion of solute and solvent in solutions are not even. That is, I said that we are going to make a solution with certain concentration. These concentrations will be based on the amount of solute and solvent that we are making. Okay, so the concentration of solution is nothing but the amount of solute dissolved in a known amount of solvent. Okay, so next, depending upon the proportion of solute, a solution can be classified into three types: dilute solution, concentrated solution, standard solution. If the amount of solute that we are adding to the solution is low, means then it is known as dilute solution. If the amount of solute is very high compared to the solvent, means then it is a concentrated solution. If we are adding a certain amount, like I said, in one cup of milk you will be adding 1 spoon of sugar, means it is a standard solution. If you are adding 2 to 3 spoons or 5 spoons of sugar, means it is a concentrated solution. If you are adding only half spoon of sugar, means it is a dilute solution. Okay, so now let me see the expressing concentration of solution. So I said the concentration of the solution. Okay, in what are all the possible ways we can express it? There are many ways like mass, volume, weight, etc. So we are going to discuss about the concentration of solution. So first is the mass percentage. That is the weight of the solution, the amount of the solute we are going to calculate, okay, based on the mass percentage. The amount of solute in grams present in 100 grams of the solution is called the mass percentage. Mass is nothing but weight by gravity, right? So on the whole, in chemical terms, we will call it as mass, okay. So mass percentage of a component can be calculated by mass of the by the following formula, right? So mass of the component in the solution divided by total mass of the solution into 100. So let us imagine there are two solutions, A and B. Okay. So on the whole, A and B will give us 100 grams. A is about 45 grams. And B is about 55 grams. On the whole, it is making 100 grams, right? So we are going to calculate the mass percentage. How you will calculate the mass percentage? We are going to mass percentage of A. Then how you will find? A by A plus B. That is the mass of the whole thing. Okay, mass of the whole thing. Mass of the component in the solution. So A is 45 divided by 45 plus 55 into 100. So that you will be into 100. This is we are multiplying with 100 to convert into the percentage, right? So we are going to calculate the mass percentage of A. So for that we are going to use this. First, the weight of A, mass of the A divided by the total mass of the solution into 100. So that we will get the mass percentage of the particular component in a solution. Next is the volume percentage. So the volume of a solute in ml present in 100 ml of the solution, it is called volume percentage. So this is also similar to that of mass percentage. Okay, here also we are going to calculate. Now we are expressing the solution in terms of volume, that is it is present in 50 ml, like that we are going to express. So we are going to calculate the volume percentage. So this also let me imagine that A and B. So on the whole it is 100 ml. Okay, so the component of A is 25 ml and the component of B is 75 ml in a particular solution. So you are going to calculate the volume percentage of component B now. So what we will be doing? Volume of the component. So we are going to calculate the volume percentage of B, right? So B by A plus B, that is 25 plus 75 into 100. So the volume of the particular component divided by the total mass of the solution into 100. So this is how we have to calculate the volume percentage of the solution. Okay, so now let me see the next one. So next is the mass by volume percentage. The mass of a solute in grams present in 100 ml of solution, or it is the mass of solute dissolved in 100 ml of solution. That is, when you are making a 100 ml of solution, you are going to add some certain amount of solute, right? So we are going to calculate the mass by volume percentage when you are adding you are not going to mix these solutions together now. You are going to dissolve some solid solute in the solvent. Okay, so you are going to calculate the mass by volume percentage by the formula mass of a solute divided by volume of solution into 100. So consider A plus B. Together A is one component, B is one component, on together it is 100 ml solution. So you are dissolving 26 gram of solute in 74 ml of 26 gram of solute in 100 ml of solution. Okay, so you are going to calculate the mass by volume percentage. So mass of solute, you are going to calculate the mass of component A. So A by volume of solution is what? 100 ml into 100. Okay, so what will be the answer now? A percentage, right? So this is the this is how you have to calculate the mass by volume percentage. So next is the parts per million. So when a solute is present in very small trace quantities, then it is convenient to express the concentration in parts per million. So that is, if you are adding very minimal amount of substance, that is if you are adding in a micrograms or you are adding in a nanograms, means it is very easy to calculate in terms of parts per million. So parts per million is equal to number of parts of the component divided by total number of parts of all components of the solution into 10 power 6. So again you are going to add any two substances, that is A and B together. So it is if the A component is of 3 parts or 4 parts and the total component is of 20 parts, you are going to calculate the parts per million of A. Okay, so then the number of parts will be 4 by 20 into 10 power 6. If you calculate that, you will be getting the answer for this one. Okay, so now let me see the next one, mole fraction. The ratio of number of moles of one component to the total number of moles of all the components present in the solution. So we said that the concentration of a solution can be expressed by weight, volume, mass by volume, parts per million, etc. So the solute and solvent can also be expressed in terms of moles. Okay, so with that we are going to calculate the mole fraction of a component. So mole fraction of a component is equal to number of moles of the component divided by total number of moles of the component. Consider again A and B. 3 moles of A is mixed with 2 moles of B. So you are going to calculate the mole fraction. Then you are going to now you are going to calculate the mole fraction of B. Then what will be the answer? So okay, we'll take A itself because your formula is A, right? So you're going to calculate the mole fraction of A. Then the number of moles in A is 3 by 3 plus 2. Okay, on together you will be getting the mole fraction. Okay, so the number of components can be not only 1 or 2, it can be n number of components. So while you are doing that, you can able to easily find the mole fraction. Okay, so next is the molarity. The solution can also be expressed in terms of molarity. The number of moles of solute present in 1 liter of solution. That is, you are going to dissolve a number of solute in a 1 liter of solution. That term is called as the molarity. So molarity is equal to mass of solute divided by volume of solution in liters. Okay, so the unit of molarity is moles per liter. Okay, so again next one is the molality. The molality is the number of moles of the solute present in 1 kg of solvent or 1000 grams of the solvent is called molality. So now we are considering in terms of weight, that is mass, 1 kg of solvent. First you are dissolving in the volume percentage, that is molarity, and next is the mass in terms of mass, that is molality. Okay, so you are going to dissolve the number of moles of the solute present in the 1 kg of solvent. So the molality formula is the mass of the solute divided by mass of solvent in kg. And then next one is the normality. So again the solution can be expressed in terms of normality and formality. Okay, so normality, the number of gram equivalents of solute present in 1 liter of solution. A normal solution contains 1 gram equivalent of solute. So normality is equal to the number of gram equivalent weights present in the liters of solution, or weight of solute in gram divided by equivalent mass into volume in liter. And then in terms of formality, the formality of a solution is defined as the number of formula mass of any solute dissolved in 1 liter of solution. So formality is equal to number of formula weight of solute divided by volume of solution in liters. So these are the 9 different ways that a solution can be expressed. So the concentration of the solution can be expressed in these ways. Okay, so now let me see the solubility. So what is the solubility? Solubility is the amount of solute, is the ability of a solute to dissolve, right? So solubility of a substance is its required amount of solute that can be dissolved in a specified amount of solvent to make a saturated solution at a specified temperature. That is, ability of a solute to dissolve in a certain amount of solvent. Okay, it is going to dissolve, the ability of a solute to dissolve. Okay, so what are all the factors influencing this solubility? One is the nature of solute, other one is the nature of solvent, temperature and pressure. These are the factors that will influence the ability of a solute to dissolve in the solvent. Okay, so now let me see the types of solubility. Solubility of a solid in a liquid. So this is first type. So you all know we are going to first see the nature of solute and solvent. How this solute will be if we want to dissolve the solute in the solvent. We know like dissolves in like solvent, like dissolves like, right? So like that, if the solute is a polar solvent, the solvent that we are going to dissolve in it is also to be a polar solvent, then only it will be dissolved. If you are dissolving a polar solvent in a non-polar solvent, it will never dissolve, okay. So like dissolves like, that is polar solute dissolves in a polar solvent, non-polar solute dissolves in a non-polar solvent. That is the substance, the solid substances that we are going to dissolve should be polar, okay. Ethanol like that, okay. So ethanol the polar, okay. And next is the dissolution. So you are going to dissolve a solid substances in a liquid. What will happen? It is getting dissolved. So this one will be getting dissolved slowly or fastly. That will be based on the type of solute that we are adding. The solute that is going to that is getting dissolved, this process is known as the dissolution. So when a solid solute is added to the solvent, some solute dissolves and its concentration increases in solution. When you are adding a certain amount of solute, that is a solid solute, to a solvent, it will be getting dissolved slowly, okay. The process is known as dissolution. So on it will be dissolving. First 1 gram will get dissolved and then again slowly it will get dissolved. So while it dissolving, what will happen? The concentration of the solution will slowly increase, okay. So this process is known as dissolution. And the next one is the crystallization. Crystallization is some solute particles in solution collide with the solid solute particles and get separated out of solution. That is the once the dissolution is over, it attains an equilibrium stage. The reversing process is known as the crystallization, because we are regaining the solid particles again, okay. This process is known as the crystallization. So now we will see the effect of temperature. So what will happen when the temperature of the solid or liquid substances, when temperature changes, what will happen to those solution? So the enthalpy change in solution is denoted as del H, okay, del H, okay, this one. So enthalpy is nothing but the temperature. We are talking about the temperature. If the dissolution process is endothermic, the solubility should increase with rise in temperature. When you are increasing the temperature, endothermic means when you are mixing together, there will not be any heat produced from the solution. Then, so that you are going to give an heat. Already it is not getting any heat from the solution. When you are making a sodium hydroxide solution, you may observe that when you are making a sodium hydroxide solution, you will observe the heat, right? So like that, if you are not observing such kind of thing, then it is known as endothermic. Sodium hydroxide is an exothermic reaction, right? So when you are if the dissolution process is endothermic, then the solubility will increase with rise in temperature. So now it is not it is an endothermic reaction. You are going to give heat to the dissolution process. So what will happen? The solubility will increase in a faster rate. If the dissolution process is exothermic, that is del H is lesser than 0, okay. So the solubility should decrease with rise in temperature. Generally, the solubility of solid solute in liquid solvents increases with increasing temperature. So NaCl solubility is not much affected by increasing the temperature. This is some example. So the solubility of a solutes in liquid solvent increases with increasing temperature, okay. So next is this is the graph representing the effect of temperature on the solubility of solids in liquids, okay. Next is the effect of pressure. Pressure does not have any significant effect on solubility of solids in liquids. There is not going to be much change in the solution if you change the pressure, okay. This is because solid and liquids are less compressible compared to gases. So solids and liquids are only we cannot compress the solids and liquid. We can able to compress only the gases. There is no much effect is going to be there when you are compressing a solid or liquid substance. Though you compress a solid substances, what will happen? This you have studied in the solid state already, right? So what will happen when you compress a solid material? It will again come back to its original position only, right? So there is no change in the effect of pressure. So next is the types of solution based on solubility. So the solutions can be classified into 3 types: saturated, unsaturated and supersaturated, okay. So first, what is saturated solution? A solution in which no more amount of solute can be dissolved at the same temperature and pressure. So when you're adding a solute to the solvent and you cannot able to, and all the substances gets dissolved. If you're imagine a cup of water, in a glass of water you are adding two tablespoon of sugar, okay. So what will happen? It is getting dissolved. So if you are adding more amount of sugar to that solution, will it dissolve? No, it will get settle down at the bottom. So such type of solution in which you cannot add any you cannot add more amount of solute, you cannot add a further amount of solute, is known as the saturated solution, okay. It attains some equilibrium state. There exists an equilibrium between the dissolved solute molecules and undissolved solute molecules in the solution, and this is known as the saturated solution, okay. You can able to in this solvent holds as much as solute as is possible at the temperature, at that temperature. So undissolved solids remains in flask. Dissolved solute is in dynamic equilibrium with solid solute particles, okay. When the process of dissolution, so now what will happen? Your the dissolution process has been completed. You are dissolving some certain amount of solute in a solvent, and you cannot add much more solute to the solvent. So there attains it acquires equilibrium state, right. So now these added solute, that is the solid substances and the solvent, is in dynamic equilibrium with each other. Now when the process of dissolution and crystallization started to occur, that what is dynamic equilibrium? That is the process when the process of dissolution and crystallization started to occur at the same rate under such condition. So when these both are occurring at the same rate under same conditions, okay. So the dissolution is also happening and also crystallization is also happening simultaneously. Then this stage is known as the dynamic equilibrium. That is, the number of solute particles going into the solution, that is getting dissolved, is also equal to the number of solute particles separating out of the solution. So if both are equal, then then we say that solution is in dynamic equilibrium. So next is the unsaturated solution. A solution in which more amount of solute can be dissolved at the same temperature and pressure is known as unsaturated solution. So we saw in saturated solution that more amount of solute can be dissolved in a solvent. Other than that, none. So with particular amount of solute only can be dissolved, okay. Other than no more solute can be added into the saturated solution, right. So what will happen when you are dissolving in the saturated solution? It will be dissolving in a slower rate, okay. When you are increasing the temperature, it will be dissolving in this slower rate. So but in unsaturated solution, at the same temperature itself, maximum number of solute will get dissolved, okay. But the concentration, the amount of solute is minimum when compared to the saturated solution in the unsaturated solution. So the amount of solute in the unsaturated solution is low when compared to the saturated solution, okay. So this is the unsaturated solution. And next is the supersaturated solution, a solution in which there is more amount of solute than that is present in a saturated solution at the same temperature and pressure is called supersaturated solution. So in this case, the amount of solute is very high than the saturated solution. The concentration of the solution will be very high than the normal form, okay. It is not in equilibrium because the amount of solute is very high now, okay. Solvent holds more solute than is normally possible at that temperature, okay. So next is the solubility of a gas in a liquid. So you know that gases are also soluble because consider the example oxygen. Oxygens are soluble in liquids, that is the sea, okay. In oceans, the oxygen are soluble in water to save the aquatic life. So this is one of the example. So hydrogen chloride gas, ammonia gas, sulfur dioxide gas are highly soluble in water. So the gases that are soluble in water will be useful in for further human beings or whatever, okay. So easily liquefiable gases are more soluble. Solubility of gas is greatly affected by pressure and temperature. So now we are going to see the what will happen when the pressure and temperature of a gas or liquid changes. So first is the effect of pressure. So we are going to apply the pressure, okay. So consider in a beaker you are pouring some solutions, and then you are over that you are keeping a piston. So what will so this is the solution, this is the beaker, you are pouring some solution, so this is the solution, and you are closing that, this is solution, and you are placing the piston. So the gap between the solution and the piston, in this place there will be a pressure. Okay, pressure will be there at this position. So now what you are going to do is there is a weight over the piston, right? You are going to increase the weight of the piston. So what will happen? There is going to be a increase of weight. So the pressure in the piston will be high. So now the pressure will be very high. With increase in the weight of the piston, solubility of the gases increases. So what will happen? The pressure increases, so that the the gas inside this will be converted into liquid, so that the pressure will be increased. Solubility of a gas increases with increase of pressure. When you are increasing the pressure, the gas will be converted into liquid. So because of higher pressure, the gases are converting into liquid. With increase of weight on the piston, solubility of gases also increases. Okay. So next is assume this system to be in a state of dynamic equilibrium. Okay, that is under such condition, under the condition such as pressure and temperature, rate of gaseous molecules entering and leaving the solution phase is the same. That is the dissolution process we saw, no, like that, when the gases are converting into liquids and the liquids are again vaporizing into gases. At this case, they are occurring simultaneously under same temperature and pressure. So what will happen by if you increase the weight? By increasing the weight, pressure on the gas molecule will now increase. Concentration of gas molecules per unit volume increases, and interactions between solvent molecules and gas molecule increases, resulting more solubility of the gas. So on increasing that concentration of the gas molecule, because of the high pressure, the concentration of the gas molecules will increase, and then the interaction between this gas molecule and the solution, that is the solvent molecule, increases, resulting more solubility. So now the gas will get solubilized as liquid. Okay, now increase the pressure over the solution phase by compressing the gas to a smaller volume. So you are increasing the pressure and you are compressing the gas molecule, as a result increasing the number of gaseous molecule per unit volume over the solution. So the number of gaseous molecule will get converted into the liquid solution. This increase in the pressure of a gas above the solution increases the solubility of a gas until a new equilibrium is reached, and thus its solubility increases. So next is the Henry's law. The first person to give a relationship between the solubility of a gas in a solvent and pressure is Henry. Okay, according to his law states that at the constant temperature, the solubility of a gas in a liquid or solution is directly proportional to the partial pressure of the gas present above the surface of a liquid or solution. So what he is saying, the solubility of a gas in a liquid or solution is directly proportional to the partial pressure. So the solubility, the solution, it is naming as X. Okay, and the partial pressure here is mentioned as P. That is, if you are increasing the partial pressure, that is pressure, the solubility of the substance is increased. So this is what he gave. He gave the relationship. So mole fraction of a gas in a solution is proportional to the partial pressure of the gas over the solution. So he is considering the solubility of a gas with that of the mole pressure. The solubility of the gas is equal to the mole fraction of a gas. Okay, solubility is equal to mole fraction. So the mole fraction is named as X, and then the partial pressure is named as P. Okay, when you increase the mole fraction, or when you increase the pressure, if you increase the partial pressure, the mole fraction will also increase. If you increase the mole fraction, the partial pressure will also get increased, right? So the partial pressure of the gas in vapor phase is P, is proportional to the mole fraction X of the gas in the solution. Henry's law is expressed as P is directly proportional to X actually. So when you are removing the proportionality, so KH into X. So KH is the proportionality constant here, which is also known as Henry's law constant. KH is the Henry's law constant. So this is the graph of Henry's law constant. When you increase the partial pressure, the mole fraction of the gas will also increase. Okay, so these are the values of some Henry's law constant for some selected gases. So next is the application of Henry's law. So to increase the solubility of CO2 in soft drinks and soda water, the bottle is sealed under high pressure. So you have seen the soda water bottle, it will be sealed under high pressure, so that the gas will be converted easily into liquid substances, right? And next is the scuba divers must cope with high concentration of dissolved gases while breathing air at high pressure underwater. Increased pressure increases the solubility of atmospheric gases in blood. And next one is at high altitudes the partial pressure of oxygen is less than that at the ground level. So low blood oxygen causes climbers to become weak and unable to think clearly. Symptoms of a condition is known as anoxia. So there will be this is also an important question. What is anoxia? They will be asking in your exam. So what is anoxia? Okay. So at higher for climbers and all, when you are climbing a hill, you will not get a sufficient amount of oxygen to breathe. So in that case, what will happen? The climbers become weak and unable to think clearly. We used to get faint when you won't get a sufficient oxygen, right? So then that is known as the anoxia. So next is the effect of temperature. Do you know what happens to gas when it dissolves in water or any other solvent is heated? So first we saw the solubility when a pressure is applied. Okay, so now what you are going to do is you are giving a heat, okay, temperature. You are increasing the temperature of the gas. Now the solution, there is a in a beaker there is a solution, above that there is a gas is also present inside that. So now you are going to heat it, you are going to increase the temperature of that solution. You observe that some bubbles emanate from water. It indicates gas is escaping in the form of bubbles from the solution. So when you are eating, there is going to be some bubbles will be coming out of that. There will be formation of bubbles that indicates the gas is escaping from in the form of bubbles. So gas escaping from the liquid in which it is dissolved or from solution when heated indicates the solubility of a gas decreased with rise in temperature. Higher temperature drives gases out of solution. So when you keep on increasing the temperature, the gas will escape out of the solution. It will not get converted into the liquid back because if you are there is a certain temperature, till that only you have to increase it. You have to eat the substance. Above that, what will happen? It will definitely going to escape out. Consider in case of when you are boiling a simple water, if you are boiling the water continuously above 100 degrees Celsius means what will happen? It will evaporate in the form of vapor, right? So that is only going to happen here also. So in that case, carbonated soft drinks are more bubbly if it's stored in the refrigerator. So you have observed when you are keeping a gas tighted bottles or you are shaking, if you are shaking a gas tighted bottles, what will happen? There will be a form of bubbles, right, because of the increase of the temperature or pressure. Okay, so warm lakes have less oxygen dissolved in them than cool lakes. So these are some examples. In the graph, least soluble gas is helium and most soluble. So they might ask which is least soluble. By giving this graph, they might ask whether which is least soluble or which is highly soluble. So the least soluble one is helium and the highly soluble one is methane. So next is the vapor pressure of liquid solutions. The pressure exerted by the vapor molecules of a liquid when they are in equilibrium with the liquid of a given temperature is called vapor pressure of the liquids at that temperature. So consider you are keeping a solution in the bottle and you are you are closing the bottle very tightly without any. After you close the bottle, there is not going to be any interaction with the outer surfaces, right? So like that, what will happen now? The pressure there is going to be a pressure will be absorbed by will be felt by the liquids in the bottle. Okay, so that pressure is known as the vapor pressure. Okay. Next is the liquid solutions are formed when solvent is a liquid. The solute can be a gas, liquid or solid. The solution containing two components is known as binary component. So when you are talking about a vapor pressure, you have to definitely consider in case of the binary components only. Definitely there should be any two substances. One is for vapor pressure we are considering about liquid in liquids and other one is solid in liquids. First we are considering in case of vapor pressure of liquid and liquid solutions. Okay, a binary solution containing two volatile liquids. Okay, this is one point. Volatile liquids are more important. Liquid solution, the components are what? They are volatile in nature. These components 1 and 2 are taken in a closed vessel. Both the components vaporize and equilibrium state is established between vapor phase and liquid phase. So there is a beaker or bottle, whatever. Okay, you are going to keep a liquid solution. Okay, and then you are going to add another liquid solution. What will happen then? They will one solution will vaporize, both these components vaporize together and they will acquire an equilibrium state. Okay, there are two types of solution, both will get vaporized and they will be acquiring an equilibrium state. Okay, in a binary solution of two liquids, there is going to be a partial pressure will be felt by the solutions, right? So the partial pressure of one component is named as P1 and the partial vapor pressure of the second component is named as P2. So the total vapor pressure felt by the whole solution is calculated by the following formula. P total is equal to P1 plus P2. So the total vapor pressure becomes equal to the sum of the partial pressure of two components 1 and 2 respectively. So we are going to add two substances in a beaker. So there is going to be a different partial pressure in both the cases, which is this one is this is first component and this is the second component. The pressure exerted by the first component is P1, the pressure exerted by the second component is P2. On the whole, the total partial pressure in the solution is known as the P total, okay, which can be calculated by P1 plus P2. So next is the Raoult's law. Francois Marc Raoult gave the quantitative relationship between partial pressure and mole fraction. It states that the partial vapor pressure of each component in the solution of a volatile liquids is directly proportional to the mole fraction of it in the solution. So in case of Henry's law, what they said, the pressure is directly proportional to the mole fraction. So here also Raoult also gave the same thing. The partial vapor pressure of each component in the solution of a volatile liquid is directly proportional to the mole fraction of it in the solution. So here there was only one solution and one is the gas, and here this was between two substances. So we are naming the first substance as P1, pressure exerted by the first substance is P1 and the pressure exerted by the second is P2, and the mole fraction will be different for the two substances. So that is for first component is X1 and for the second component it is X2. So X1 and X2 are the mole fraction of components 1 and 2, and so P1 is directly proportional to X1 and P2 is directly proportional to X2, right? So when you are removing this proportionality constant, you will be naming the P1 naught and P2 naught, or vapor pressure of pure components, okay? It is not because of the it is for the P1 naught is the vapor pressure of the pure component, okay? It is not the partial vapor pressure, it is the vapor pressure, okay? So according to Dalton's law of partial pressure, the total pressure over the solution phase in the container will be the sum of the partial pressures of the components of the solution. So the total pressure exerted in the solution felt by the solution is equal to the sum of the partial pressure in each component, okay? So P total is equal to P1 plus P2. So what is P1? P1 is equal to P1 naught into X1. P2 is equal to P2 naught into X2, right? So we are going to substitute this P1 and P2 value in this formula. So P1 naught into X1 plus P2 naught into X2. The sum of the mole fraction of X1 plus X2 is equal to 1. So we are going to substitute this thing in any one of the cases, like we are going to substitute instead of we are going to substitute X2 value in case of X1 or X1 value in case of X2, like that. That is, we are going to rewrite this formula. X1 plus X2 is equal to 1, right? So X2 can be 1 minus X1 or X1 can be 1 minus X2. So in this case we are going to substitute this. We can substitute anything, that is not an issue, okay? So X1 instead of X1 1 minus X2 into P1 naught plus P2 naught into X2. So we are now multiplying this P1 naught into this value. So P1 naught minus X2 into P1 naught plus X2 into P2 naught, okay? So P1 naught plus, we are going to take the X2 commonly because X2 term is common here. We are taking this out into P2 naught because we are taking the plus sign here. So we are writing this term P2 naught minus P1 naught. So if you substitute means you will be getting this answer. So P total is equal to this formula, okay? So next is the conclusion of Raoult's law. Total vapor pressure of the solution over the solution can be related to the mole fraction. So vapor pressure is related to the mole fraction, okay? P is related with the mole fraction X of any component. Total vapor pressure over the solution varies linearly with the mole fraction of any component. So the vapor pressure will vary only in very small amount, that is it will vary linearly, okay? Depending on the vapor pressure of the pure component 1 and 2, total vapor pressure over the solution either decrease or increase with increase in the mole fraction of either component. That is, if you increase the component of because there is a two substance present here. Okay, if you are increasing only the one mole fraction of any one component, there is going to be only linear change in that vapor pressure. Okay, like that if you are depending on the vapor pressure of the pure component, total vapor pressure of over the solution, that is if you are increasing only any one of the mole component of any one, there is not going to be much change in the total vapor pressure of the solution. There is going to be only minimum change, either it will decrease or increase depending upon on which component you are increasing the mole fraction, or if you are increasing the mole fraction, the total vapor pressure will increase. If you are decreasing the mole fraction, there is going to be a decrease in the total pressure, but slightly. So the graphical representation of vapor pressure versus mole fraction of an ideal solution at constant temperature is represented here. So at first point, what will happen, there is going to be only one component is going to be present and the other component will be nil. So what will happen, x1 is 1, x2 is equal to 0, so you are going to increase the mole fraction. So what will happen now, on increasing the mole fraction, other component will be getting 0 and the getting 1, and the component which already present will be getting 0. So this is the representation of the vapor pressure. Okay, so the dotted lines 1 and 2 represent the partial pressure of the components. So these are the partial pressure of the components. The thick line curve represents the total vapor pressure. So these two lines are partial component. So this is the partial vapor pressure of first component, and this line is the vapor pressure of second component, and this line is the vapor pressure, the total vapor pressure. Okay, total vapor pressure. So the minimum value of the P total is equal to P1 naught and the maximum value is equal to P2 naught, that is P2 naught is greater than the P1 naught. So you have to remember this thing. Using the Dalton's law of partial pressure, partial pressure is represented as Pi and mole fraction into total pressure. So mole fraction x1 and total pressure P. So using the Dalton's law of partial pressure, Raoult's law, in Raoult's law this was the formula given by Raoult's. Okay. So next is the Raoult's law as a special case of Henry's law. The partial pressure of the volatile component of a gas is component or gas is directly proportional to its mole fraction in solution. So what we saw in Henry's law, pressure is directly proportional to x. Here also partial pressure is directly proportional to x. So this is also Henry's law special case. Okay. So P is directly proportional to x, P is equal to kH into x, but partial pressure, P is the partial pressure of gas, kH is the Henry's law constant, x is the mole fraction of its solution, which kH becomes equal to P1 naught. If they are giving kH value in a exam, like in any question, like in any problems, kH value is given means it is equal to Pi naught. Okay, if Pi naught value is given means that is equal to kH. So kH is equal to Pi naught is the conclusion obtained from this case. Okay. So next is the vapor pressure of solid liquid solution. So that is we are going to add a solid substance to the liquid solvent. Okay. So the vapor pressure of the solution is always less than that of a pure solvent. That is you are taking a pure solvent in one beaker and you are in other beaker you are going to add a solute to the solvent. So what will happen to the vapor pressure now? The vapor pressure of the solution which contains both solute and solvent will be low as compared to the pure solvent. That is why the vapor pressure of the pure solvent is very high when compared to the substance that contains solute also. In a solution, some of the non-volatile solute molecules occupies the surface of the solution. Okay, so the solute that we are adding will occupy the surface of the solvent, so that what will happen, there will be surface of the solvent. This in turn what will happen, reduces the vapor pressure of the solvent. So Raoult's law is in general for any solutions of the partial vapor pressure of each volatile component in the solution is directly proportional to the mole fraction. So Pi is directly proportional to Xi, right? So Pi is the partial pressure and Xi is the mole fraction. Okay, and Pi is equal to Pi naught into x1. So Pi is equal to Pi naught into x1. Pi naught is nothing but the proportional constant. Okay, in case of Henry's law, Pi naught is the Raoult's law, Pi naught is the proportional constant. It is equal to vapor pressure of the pure solvent. Pi naught is the vapor pressure of the pure solvent. Okay. So this is the graph between vapor pressure and mole fraction of the solvent, and the shape of the curve is linear. So there is going to be only a linear change when you are increasing or decreasing the mole fraction in the solution. So this is the graph. Try to remember all the graphs. They might ask questions by based on the graphs also. They will give the graph and they will ask what which graph is this, whether it's a Raoult's law graph or it is a vapor pressure graph. So like that they will be asking, okay, Henry's law or whatever. So next is the ideal and non-ideal solution. So what is an ideal solution? The solutions which obey Raoult's law at any concentration and temperature are known as ideal solution. So ideal solutions obey Raoult's law. Okay, this is the point number 1. Two liquids A and B form an ideal solution if AA intermolecular attractive forces are similar to that of BB. So we are going to add two liquid substances to form an ideal solution. Both the intermolecular attractive forces should be equal. If the intermolecular attractive force of first component and the second component are equal, then it is known as an ideal solution. That is, if that is equal, then the del H and del V will be equal to 0. A perfectly ideal solution is rare, but some solutions are nearly ideal in behavior. So examples are N-hexane and N-heptane, bromoethane with chloroethane, benzene with toluene. So these are the examples. Try to remember this. They might ask an example for an ideal and non-ideal solutions also. So next is the non-ideal solution. When a solution does not obey Raoult's law at any concentration and temperature is called non-ideal solution. A solution which does not obey Raoult's law over entire range of concentration, that is in, so we saw that ideal solution obey Raoult's law, whereas non-ideal solution does not obey Raoult's law, that is at any concentration. We said that ideal solution will obey Raoult's law at any concentration. Here in any concentration or over the entire range of concentration, the non-ideal solutions won't obey Raoult's law. Okay, and next is the non-ideal solutions are those in which the solute-solvent interaction are different than solute-solute interaction and solvent-solvent interaction. There we saw that intermolecular force of attraction are same, right? Here there will be different. For the solution, del H will not be equal to 0 and del V will not be equal to 0. If the vapor pressure of a non-ideal solution is high, then it exhibits positive deviation. Note this, it is very important question here, positive and negative deviation. If the vapor pressure is high, then it exhibits positive deviation. If the vapor pressure is low, then it exhibits negative deviation. So next is we are going to see about the positive deviation, solution with positive deviation. In these solutions, solute-solute and solvent-solvent interactions are stronger than solute-solute interaction. So next is the solutions with positive deviation. In these solutions, solute-solute and solvent-solvent interactions are stronger than solute-solvent interaction. Okay, so the partial pressure of each component of the solution is greater than the vapor pressure expected according to Raoult's law. So the vapor pressure of each component is very high than the total vapor pressure as it is explained in the Raoult's law. Okay, so the interaction becomes, as the interaction becomes weaker, hence escaping tendency of the molecule increases. Okay, so example are a mixture of ethanol and acetone shows positive deviation. This is an example for positive deviation. In ethanol, the molecules are associated through intermolecular hydrogen bonding which are broken, hence it exhibits positive deviation. So they might ask why the ethanol and acetone mixture shows positive deviation. So this is the answer for that. In that case, del H will be greater than 0 and del V is also greater than 0. The solution forms minimum boiling azeotropes. You are going to study about the azeotropes in next slides. Okay, so example ethanol and water in a rectified spirit. So next is solution with negative deviation. In these solutions, solute-solute and solvent-solvent interaction are weaker. So weaker than solute-solvent interaction. The partial vapor pressure of each component is less than the vapor pressure as expected. So in that case, solute-solute and solvent-solvent interaction are stronger than the solute-solvent interaction. The partial pressure of each component is high compared to the total partial pressure. In case of positive deviation, here the partial pressure will be of each component is less than the partial pressure, vapor pressure of the component. The interaction becomes stronger, hence escaping tendency of the molecules decreases. So here the example is a mixture of acetone and chloroform. So it shows negative deviation. They might ask why this acetone and chloroform mixture shows negative deviation. So between acetone and chloroform molecules, attraction will be developed due to hydrogen bonding. Here the hydrogen bonding is formed, there the hydrogen bonding is getting broken down. So here the del H is lesser than 0, del V is also lesser than 0. So they might ask a question difference between a positive and negative deviation also. So here the solution forms maximum boiling azeotropes. There it was minimum boiling azeotrope. So example are this. Okay. So try to remember these differences. They might ask in 3-mark question also. So next we saw what the azeotropes in negative deviation and in positive deviation also. So first, what is an azeotrope? Azeotropes are azeotropic mixture, okay, a binary mixture which cannot be resolved into two components by distillation is called azeotrope. So we might have studied in earlier grades that a component mixture can be separated into each component by process of many separation techniques, and under that distillation is one of the technique, right? So which cannot be resolved into its each component by distillation process is known as azeotropes. So and here is the representation for vapor pressure curves for solution showing positive and negative deviations. Okay, they might ask questions based on this. They might give the graph and they might ask what does this graph indicates, whether it indicates the positive deviation or it indicates the negative deviation. So now we are done with the theory part. Now we will solve some problems based on this. So the first question is, a solution of glucose having molar mass 180 gram per mole in water is labeled as 10% by mass. What would be the molality and molarity of the solution? Density of a solution is given. So the molar, so in a solution the solute will be named as the second component B and the solvent will be named as the first component A. So here they have given the is labeled as 10% by mass. Okay, so they have given one. This means 10 gram of solute is 10% mass, that is 10 gram of solute is dissolved in 100 ml of solution, right? So WB is given, the solute component is 10 gram. So what will be the weight mass of the first component? 100 minus 10, right? So which is equal to 90 gram. So they have given the molar mass of the solute, that is 180 gram per mole. So they have given this. So what we have to calculate molality and molarity. So first we will calculate the molality. So molality is equal to number of moles of solute by mass of solvent in kg. So number of moles of solute, that is NB by mass of solvent. What is that? WA. So what is the number of moles of solute? Number of moles of solute is equal to mass by mass by molar mass. So number of moles is equal to mass by molar mass. So what is the number of components of mass of solute? 10 gram divided by what is the molar mass? 180 divided by weight of the solvent. So that is 90 gram. It is given in gram. So we have to convert into kg, right? So into 1000 into 10 power minus 3 when you keep converting into when you are taking it the numerator, so it will become 10 power 3, that is 1000. So the answer is 0.617 moles. Okay, molality. So next is we have to find out the molarity. So what is the formula for molarity? Number of moles of solute divided by volume of solution in liters. Okay, volume in liters. So we have to first calculate the volume. So volume is equal to mass by density, right? So mass by density. So mass by density, the formula answer will be mass of the solution is volume of the solution. Mass of the solution is 100. The density is 1 by 2. The answer is 83.33 into 10 power minus 3 liters. Okay, milliliters. So now with this we have to calculate the molarity. Okay. Molarity is equal to number of moles of solute. So number of moles of solute again is mass by molar mass, 10 by 180 divided by 83.3 into 10 power minus 3 milliliter. You have to convert into liter, so into 10 power 3 into 1000. Okay, so answer will be 0.67 molarity. So the second question is, Henry's law constant Kh for the solution of methane in benzene 298 Kelvin is 4.27 into 10 power 5 mmHg. So calculate the solubility of methane in benzene at 298 Kelvin under 760 mmHg, that is have given the pressure and also the Kh value. So They have also mentioned it is Henry's law constant, Henry, so it is based on the Henry's law. So what is the Henry's law? P is equal to Kh into X. We have to calculate the solubility. So so in this is vapor pressure, and this is the Henry's law constant, this is the mole fraction. Mole fraction is equal to the solubility, which is named as C. So C is solubility, okay. So mole fraction is equal to solubility that we saw in the theory itself. So they have given Kh is equal to 4.27 into 10 power 5 mmHg, and then the pressure is equal to 760. We have to calculate the solubility. So P is equal to Kh into C. C is equal to P by Kh, right. P is equal to 760 divided by 4.27 into 10 power 5 Hg, right. So the answer is 1.78 into 10 power minus 3, okay. So this is the solubility of methane in benzene. Now let me see what are all the important topics or things that we have to memorize in this unit. So this is a damn sure thing that you might get in the exam. So first you have to memorize the concentration of solution. We have saw the 9 expressions for the concentration of solution. So the formulas of those things will be important because they will be asking questions, problems from that point of view. And then Henry's law and Raoult's law, you have to memorize the formula. The formula in Henry's law and Raoult's law is very small, right. So they might ask questions based on that, or they might ask a question based on the graph given or the concept. They might even ask the law itself, okay. And next is the graph based on the vapor pressure of liquid solution. So these things you have to surely memorize it, okay. And next I have given some certain questions you have from your exam point of view. So these are previous year questions, so they will be asking these type of questions only from this topics, okay. So what does mean by positive deviations from Raoult's law? Give an example. What is the sign of del mix H for positive deviation? So azeotropes, these and all I have discussed in these things on itself, right. So these are the practice questions. You might get questions based on this type only. So we are done with this session. Okay guys, now let us shortly discuss what are all the topics that we saw in this session. We saw what is a solution, what are the types of solution, what is the concentration of a solution, in what are all the possible ways a solution can be expressed, and we saw about the solubility, vapor pressure of liquid solutions. Under that we saw Henry's law, Raoult's law, ideal and non-ideal solutions, azeotropes, etc. So in next class we will see about the colligative properties and their types. So it is a quite easy chapter. You can easily score in this chapter by understanding the concepts. Now it's your time to learn the concept and score in your exam. Thank you guys.
For more queries, please contact Buddy on 98408 44987 or visit buddy.live.